I'm Sherilyn McElroy, and this is Romantic Romps. Welcome, everyone, to another audible podcast of Romantic Romps, where guests share their stories of love and how it changed their lives. Good morning, Romantic Romps listeners. I'm sad to say that Riley has a head cold, so there will be no interview today. I know, it's fun to hear this 87-year-old woman talk about her past in only a way Riley can do. However, don't be disappointed. In the place of my time with her, I shall read Chapter 6 of her memoir. Now, I need to make you aware of something coming up in 2 weeks. Chapter 7 of Riley's memoir is the first chapter that contains adult content. I'm giving you this heads up now in case you are skittish about hearing boudoir exploits over the airwaves. As I have said before, Riley is quite explicit in describing her sexual escapades. And with that piece of information on the table, I shall now proceed with Chapter 6. The Life of Riley, Chapter 6. My time with Fitz proved interesting. It started as we walked to the client parking lot where a magnificent cherry apple red MGA 1500 convertible roadster waited to take us to lunch. Expecting a gentleman to perform his gentlemanly duty, I paused at the passenger side door and waited for him to open it for me. I'm glad he did, because I saw no exterior handle anywhere on the side of the car by which to access his vehicle on my own. I sank into the tan bucket seat where the rich, soothing scent of leather enveloped my senses. The durable material caressed my palms as I ran them over the animal hide. Drinking in the details of the grand interior, I imagined myself zooming down the highway toward a secret rendezvous with my lover, my hair becoming one with the wind as he and I threw cares away while breaking all the rules. All the rules. Because of my detachment from reality, I didn't hear Fitz slip into the bucket seat beside me. Poised, he eased back with his gaze directed at me.
I take it by the look on your face you approve of my transportation.
Oh, Fitz, I sighed. This car is dreamy, and having you behind the wheel adds to the vision. I transferred my attention to the glossy exterior.
You think I'm dreamy too?
He asked in a deep voice to stress the word. I hummed.
You just told me I was dreamy.
His statement touched a brain nerve. He said I said what? I thought. I never told him that, did I? Oh my God, did I? My body went rigid, my eyes widened, and my head jerked in his direction. Recognizing my embarrassment, he threw his head back and exploded in uproarious laughter. I needed to defend myself, but the words stuck somewhere between my brain and my mouth. To top it off, he planted his hand on my thigh, which brought an instant contraction to my leg and a flush to my face. Using my purse, I indiscreetly pushed against his hand as if trying to brush a bug away. It was a stubborn bug. My action brought an ear-to-ear grin to his face, as if he enjoyed his little cat-and-mouse play.
It's all right, Riley. I get that a lot.
He squeezed and released my leg. I clasped the handle of my purse in my lap and focused forward as he put the motor car in gear. Without another word from either of us, Fitz left the parking lot and waited to find an opening to enter the heavy traffic. Since it was lunchtime, cars zipped around each other, carrying passengers to their destinations. The difference was they weren't expecting Lucifer to be waiting for them that night like I was because of my sinful thoughts of a man who was not Sherman. I always knew my mouth would get me into a lot of trouble someday. However, I thought it would be a slip of the tongue of unladylike vocabulary. I never envisioned it would be this kind of teenage girl stupidity. Pulling into the lot of the local diner, Fitz parked his car. Getting out of the roadster, he came around to open my door and offered me his hand to help me out. No way would I touch any part of him. If I did, I'd evaporate in a puff of smoke and go straight to hell. Would not pass go, would not collect $200.
Riley?
His pearly whites sparkled. Oh, what choice did I have? None. Therefore, I placed just my fingers in his cool, dry palm. He waited while I swiveled and planted my high heels on the asphalt. Then in one fluid movement, he lifted my hand as I raised myself from the seat. As he reached around me to swing the door shut, I caught a whiff of the salty and refreshing notes of his subtle cologne. He was gorgeous enough without having to smell so good, too. "Get behind me, Lucifer," my mind thought. "Stop tempting me." Entering the eatery, I found the volume of noise almost too loud to hear myself think. Dishes clattered behind the counter. Women laughed 2 octaves too high. Men roared and slapped each other on the back after saying something funny. It was glorious. Fitz and I grabbed an empty booth the moment a couple vacated it, and after sliding onto the red vinyl seat, we perused the menu. Once the waitress cleaned the table and took our order, Fitz began a barrage of questions.
From what Coral has told me, I already know about the efficient office manager, Riley. Now I'd like to learn about who Riley is outside the office. Tell me about yourself.
He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew his pack of Pall Malls.
Smoke?
He offered. The man was such a cool cookie. How could I refuse? After I slid one out of the pack, he retrieved his lighter and lit my cigarette before lighting his own. Inhaling my first puff, I turned my head to exhale the smoke. "There's not much to tell," I said. "I'm a simple woman with simple needs and wants." Staring, accompanied by a smirk, he studied me for a moment as he allowed his cigarette to burn down untouched.
Somehow I don't think you are as uncomplicated as you say.
He needed to stop looking at me in a way that penetrated my clothes. Where was our food? I needed it to keep from slobbering all over my lunch partner.
Were you born here in Detroit?
He asked after taking a deep drag from the filtered end of the cigarette. "No, Muskegon," I said, tapping the cigarette ashes into the ashtray. "My family thought about moving after I was adopted, but they nixed the idea." His head tilted.
You're adopted?
"Yes."
Do you mind me asking how that happened?
I shrugged. There was no shame on my part. "When I was old enough to understand," I said, "my adopted parents told me my biological father had perished in a car accident a few months before I was born. My biological mother had died in childbirth. Mine," his expression turned compassionate.
I'm sorry, Riley. So, when and how did your adoption take place?
"After I lost my birth mother," I explained, "her best friend, who worked as a nurse in the same hospital, became my foster parent. Right after that, she and her husband started the adoption process. Our DNA doesn't match, but they are my parents just the same, and I refer to them as such. That's pretty much it."
Anyone younger or older in your household who could have taken the blame for breaking a window other than you?
He joked. My eyes flashed with amusement. "No, I'm an only child, which makes me my mother and father's favorite." A grin crossed his lips as he kept the questions coming.
Do your parents still live in Muskegon?
"They certainly do. I can't think of anything that would entice them to move, not even my leaving town." The waitress brought our meal, and we doused our cigarettes in the ashtray at the end of the table.
Coral tells me you're married.
He continued as the woman set our plates down.
Enlighten me. What kind of man can snag a catch like you?
I nearly spit out my chocolate milkshake at such boldness. After swallowing in a hurry so the patrons didn't see me spew like an erupting volcano, my face flushed with the intensity of heat from that non-existent lava. Thank you? I asked instead of stated. My husband's name is Sherman, and we've been married for just over 2 years.
What does your man do for a living? I hope it's something lucrative that keeps you in furs and diamonds.
He glanced at the off-brand purse sitting beside me.
And not somewhere that earns him merely enough to keep you dressed and fed.
Well, I thought, that was rude. My admiration for Fitz fell several notches at his unsubstantiated insinuation. I squared my shoulders. As a matter of fact, Fitz, Sherman's company just promoted him to vice president, which pays quite well, thank you very much. Fitz's mouth rose in a smirk.
Good to know. What company does your husband work for?
Unified Automobile Company, I bragged with confidence. Now it was his turn to choke on his food. My narrowed brows and cocked head prompted Fitz to explain his shock.
Really? You are aware that UAC has been struggling to survive as a company since 2 car manufacturers merged to form it. The new company has not even reported a profit yet. Worse than that, the firm's largest loss occurred this year.
How kind. Sarcasm becomes me. It was of Fitz to inform me of these facts. Then he followed up with,
I hope your husband still has a job in a couple of months and you don't end up on Skid Row.
in return for his thoughtfulness, I wanted to show him how unladylike I could be and give him a knuckle sandwich right in the kisser. I mean, really, who in their right mind had the audacity to insinuate someone they never met would soon lose their job? It took all I had not to reach across the table and throttle him. Instead, I lowered my head and counted to 10 to control my temper. You must be mistaken, Fitz. I cockily addressed this insolent bastard. UAC would not have promoted my husband, offered him a raise, and paid for our move here if that were the case, all of which they did. Fitz retracted the inference.
I'm sure you are correct, Riley.
He agreed.
No enterprise in that dire situation would be foolish enough to do something so extravagant for a new employee.
I loved winning against an insensitive pig like Beauregard Fitzgerald Kingston. The win, though sweet, did not lessen my bitterness. Most of the remaining time at the diner ticked by in tempered silence. When Fitz raised a topic he thought might interest me, I had little, if anything, to say about it. As a result, he stopped trying and ate his food without engaging me further. Returning to his motor car after leaving the restaurant, I had to wait for him to open the door for me, which frosted me to heaven's gate. Jesus Christ! Where in God's name was the handle to this cracker box? As soon as the poor excuse of a gentleman opened the door, I plopped myself on the seat, crossed my arms, and stared straight ahead. It took a lot to get me riled, but when Fitz shoved a knife into Sherman's back with his uncalled-for remark and twisted that same knife in mine, yep, that fit the bill.
Riley, I'm sorry for upsetting you.
He apologized, entering his side of the car.
Let's not let this mishap end our first meeting on a sour note.
He draped his arm around the back of my seat.
What do you say?
He cooed, making tiny circles on my upper arm.
I refuse to move this vehicle until you tell me I'm forgiven.
His lofty attitude was as annoying as the antics of trying to smooth over being a king-sized jerk. Then he put the cherry on top by becoming even more irritating by getting a little too familiar. Hacked off to the gills, I clenched my teeth and gave him a scathing glare. Not a chance, buddy boy, I thought. If you're going to just sit there, I'll find my own way back. Satisfied with my mental decision, I reached for the inside door handle, but couldn't find it. How is a body supposed to get out of this tin can? Watching my frantic search for a way to escape, he grabbed my arm to get my attention and keep me from pulling the wrong thing.
Oh, come on, Riley,
He pleaded.
Don't be so stubborn. I told you I was sorry. What more can I say?
I didn't want to walk the 2 miles to the office, and I didn't bring any cash for the bus. I couldn't call Sherman to come get me. Yeah, that would be awkward. My choice was obvious. Fine, I spouted. Just get this Mickey Mouse excuse for a car fired up and get me back. One insult deserved another. Shaking his head, he started the engine, backed the car up, and entered the flow of traffic. To keep him from saying anything else, I focused my attention out the passenger side until reaching the complex. Once free of the vehicle, I pushed my way past him and never glanced back. At my desk, curiosity got the best of me. I looked through the large outside window and saw Fitz standing by the side of his roadster. He lit a cigarette and nonchalantly smoked it until throwing the butt on the ground and grinding it out with the ball of his shoe. He threw one more glance in my direction, then slid into his car and drove away. Instead of working on the letter Coral had given me to type, I rehashed what happened at lunch with her husband. Why would a man I just met taunt me so? What happened to making a good first impression? Whatever his reason, he did not put his best foot forward with me. A drawn-out breath left my lungs. I typed what Coral had written and placed it in an envelope. I licked the disgusting sealant, closed the flap, placed a 3-cent stamp in the corner, and put it where the postman would pick it up tomorrow. Time dragged on, but 5 o'clock finally arrived. The drive home was too slow for my taste, but that was the norm. I pulled Bluebell up our driveway to the covered carport at the top and stopped over the old layer of oil. Depressed by the day's event, but glad to be home, I gathered my belongings from the passenger seat and walked into the house. To my surprise, Sherman stood in the foyer wearing my red and white checked apron, with a dry martini in each hand, speechless at such a gift, not to mention the heavenly aroma of roasting chicken penetrating my nostrils. My eyes misted as I dropped my briefcase and purse on the floor instead of on the settee. Relieving my husband of his offering, I wrapped my arms around his shoulders in gratitude, trying not to spill one drop of the rehabilitating liquid. How could my melancholy continue with such a warm welcome? There was no doubt my Adonis with the pot belly trumped the Adonis with the Spitfire Red Chariot any day.